Hi guys, welcome back to another episode. In this episode, I'm going to pull this gearbox back out to sort the clutch out. The problem I've got is the slave cylinder is at its full extent and it can't operate the clutch fork properly to release the clutch. When I've got it all apart, I'll show you, give you an explanation of what's going on and maybe show you how a clutch works as well.
First job is jack the car up. This will give me clearance to get the lift underneath it, and then I can get the jack under the engine and support the engine when I remove the gearbox. Now that that's done, I can undo the gearbox mounts so I can lift it up out of the mounting plates, ready to remove it. So I've got this block of wood here. This is just to go on the jack to go up onto the sump of the engine to protect the sump from any damage from the jack. And the reason I'm doing this is because the mounts are at the front of the engine, and if I don't hold the back half of the engine with the jack, it's just going to fall out of the bottom of the car. So it's better to be safe than sorry. I'll put some stands under there as well, just in case the jack does decide to go down, just to hold it in place. Now that I've got the chain on, I can take a little bit of the weight of the gearbox with the lift and then start undoing the bolts. Once I've got them nearly out, I can then just slide it off. The lift is going to take all the weight of it. It's going to be a lot easier to get it out. And there we go, one gearbox removed. While I've got the gearbox off, I'm just going to take the clutch pack off because I need to put the other 4 bolts into the flywheel and make sure they're all tightened up. Now that that's all tightened up, we can go on to how a clutch works. So a clutch usually comes in 3 pieces. This is the pressure plate because it exerts pressure on the center plate, and this is the center plate. This is essentially what drives your gearbox and therefore drives your wheels. This connects the engine to the gearbox through the pressure plate. There is another part to it which is called a release bearing, which I'll show you in a minute, but for now we'll just concentrate on these two. This area here is where the clutch center plate grips on the pressure plate. These diaphragms you can see here are operated by the release bearing, and they are what releases the clutch. They pull that disc away from the center plate. When it's together, it looks like this, and then you've got the flywheel sandwiches it all together. The pressure plate is always bolted to the flywheel, so that always spins, but when you push here on the release bearing, when you press on the clutch pedal, this part moves back and releases the center plate to stop it driving the wheels. That allows you to change gear because it allows your synchros to work. When you let go of the clutch, it re-engages back to the flywheel and away you go again. And this is the clutch arm or clutch fork, depending on which side of the fence you want to sit on. They both work the same way. They connect to the release bearing, which you can see the release bearing carrier moving in the middle. When you operate the clutch, it operates on the fulcrum and pushes or pulls, depending on the design, the release bearing in or out of the clutch to disengage the clutch. You can have a cable type clutch or you can have a hydraulic clutch. This one is hydraulic, so you've got this small slave cylinder. When you press the clutch pedal, it pushes fluid through and pushes the slave cylinder to disengage the clutch. So the problem I have with this is, because this gearbox isn't for this engine, when I've measured up to where the slave cylinder is going to be pushing the release bearing, it's about 10mm too short to have any effect on the clutch pack whatsoever. What that means is when I press the clutch pedal, it's not going to disengage the clutch at all. It's barely going to touch. So what I've had to do is I've done some measuring up, drew up this, which is an extension piece to put on the end of the original release bearing, which you'll see in a moment. And I've made this a press fit. It's about 2 thou oversize for the central hole. And what I'm going to do is freeze the steel piece. I've had it made in, I think it was D2 tool steel, because it's very hard wearing and it won't just get ground away by the pressure plate. So freeze that as much as I can, slightly warm up the release bearing, and then put them both together. And you'll see this here. You can see the frost disappearing where the heat is transferring in, and it fits lovely. So with that done, I can put the release bearing on and we can put the gearbox back in. Just do a quick operation check, just make sure it rotates around the sleeve on the gearbox. There should be plenty of clearance, but it's always good just to check, and just check that it's not catching on anything when it's moving in and out. It's all good, so back in with the gearbox. If you do ever put a gearbox back in on your own or with someone else, it's much easier with someone else. Just put it in gear if you can before you put it in place, because when you're trying to get it on the splines, if it's in neutral and it catches on the splines, the shaft of the gearbox will just turn. If you put it in gear, it stops the shaft turning or puts quite a bit of resistance on it, so it tends to stay in place, and you can manipulate the gearbox then to get it into the splines of the clutch and send it home. Then you can get it bolted up. So drop it down on its mounts, get it bolted up, and then I can put the slave cylinder on, and that's the job done. So fit the slave cylinder, and I can see I've got a fair bit of preload on here, so I know when I put fluid in it and start it operating, I'm going to be okay, and I should have full disengage of the clutch. And with that done, that's it for this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.